Sometimes you wake up one morning and suddenly realize you've gone through half of your life, but you still haven't truly lived the life you've always wanted. I've felt that way before. At 47, after more than 2 decades working as a life coach, I suddenly realized something. I'd been teaching people how to live better, yet I myself had been caught in the endless cycle of work, money, responsibilities, and a quiet fear of getting older. One day, I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger staring back, a tired face, eyes that had lost their spark. And I asked myself, when did I stop growing? When did I start living without feeling truly alive? Have you ever felt that way? You're still breathing, still working, still fine. But deep inside, there's an emptiness, a space that nothing seems to fill. That was the day I began my journey to rediscover myself, not through self-help books or quick success formulas, but by observing people, especially those over 50, the ones I've spent years coaching and walking alongside. And I discovered something. Our lives don't fail to change because we don't know how to change. They stay the same because of silent habits that keep us stuck exactly where we are. We say we want a new life, yet we keep repeating the same old thoughts, the same reactions, the same daily routines. We dream of freedom, but live inside a prison built by our own minds. A friend of mine, Michael, once told me, "I'm 55 now. What's the point of changing at this age?" I smiled at him and said, "Michael, an oak tree takes 20 years to grow tall, but it still starts from a tiny seed. The question isn't when you start, it's whether you still have the courage to plant that seed." I share this story with you because I truly believe anyone at any age can change their life if they're willing to look honestly at what's been holding them back. And in today's video, I want to talk about 5 such things. 5 silent habits that quietly destroy transformation. I've seen them in my students and my closest friends, and yes, even in the man I used to be. Before we dive into these 5 habits, I want you to pause for just a moment. Take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders. And ask yourself this question: am I living a life I'm truly proud of? It's okay if your answer is not yet. Because what matters most isn't where you are, it's whether you're willing to start changing from today. I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here to share what I've learned through failures, sleepless nights, and the real stories of people I've met along the way. Maybe you're watching this video in the quiet of an evening after a long, tiring day. Or maybe you're listening to it while driving or sipping your morning coffee. Wherever you are, I want you to know this. You still have time. You can still change. And it is never too late to begin again. You see, the scariest thing in life isn't failure, it's losing faith in our ability to change. I once worked with a woman named Maria, 63 years old. She had been through 2 broken marriages, lost her job, and felt like she had no value left. But instead of waiting for someone to save her, she decided to save herself. She started taking classes again, joined a yoga group, and eventually opened a small wellness center for seniors. 3 years later, Maria looked at me and said, "I'm not afraid of aging anymore, because for the first time in my life, I'm truly living." I share her story not because it's a miracle, but because it shows that change doesn't have to be dramatic. It begins with a single small step, a new awareness, or sometimes, just the decision to stop and truly look at yourself. We live in a noisy world, a world where everyone talks, teaches, shows off. But few people truly listen to themselves. I call that the paradox of the modern age, a time when we have everything except silence. So today, I invite you to join me. For just a few quiet minutes, let's slow down, listen, and reflect together. I want to share with you 5 hidden habits that quietly sabotage change, and more importantly, how you can free yourself from them. Don't rush through this. Because what I'm about to share isn't about quick tips or 7-day transformation. I don't believe in fast change. I believe in deep, lasting transformation, the kind that begins when you're finally ready to look within. And maybe, just maybe, one of these 5 truths will touch you deeply enough to begin shifting your life, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, deeply, and truly. So are you ready? If you are, then stay with me, because the very first habit, the root cause that keeps so many people from ever changing, is the habit of blaming and complaining. 1. The habit of blaming and complaining. You know, after many years of working with hundreds of middle-aged people, I've realized one thing. When life doesn't go as planned, we tend to find someone or something to blame. We blame our parents for not teaching us better. We blame our boss, the economy, our age, even fate. Some people even blame this stage of life. But the truth is, blaming doesn't make life better. It might give us temporary relief because we've found someone else responsible, but at the same time, we hand over our power to control our own life. I once had a student named John. When we first met, he told me I can't start over. Every door is closed. If this society were fairer, if I'd been born in a different time, maybe I would have succeeded. I simply asked him, John, if you keep believing everything is someone else's fault, then who will take responsibility for the rest of your life? He went silent for a while, then smiled softly. That was the first moment he began taking back control of his life. You see, complaining makes us weaker without us realizing it. When we complain, our energy drains away. But when we act, energy is reborn. If there's something in your life you're not happy with, don't say I can't. Instead, ask, what can I do to change it, even just a little? It's only one different question, but it leads to an entirely different direction. 2. Fear of change because of comfort. Do you remember the last time you did something new? The last time you said I'll try without overthinking. One of the hardest things for adults to overcome is the comfort zone. We may not be happy, but we're used to it. We know our job is dull, but at least it's stable. We want to live differently, but we're afraid to start again. I once worked with a woman named Helen. She'd been an office employee for 30 years. One day, she said, I've dreamed of opening a small bakery since I was young. But I'm 58 now. Isn't it too late? I smiled and replied, Helen, if you have 20 years left to live, do you want those 20 years to pass in regret or in happiness, doing what you love? A year later, she opened that bakery. It wasn't big, but every time I visited, she said, every day now smells like flour and laughter. You see, change isn't what's scary. Living the same day over and over is. Comfort can be a golden cage. It makes us feel safe, but it keeps us from flying. Ask yourself, if I weren't afraid of failure, what would I do right now? Maybe that answer will lead you to where your heart truly wants to go. 3. Comparing yourself to others. I call this the silent disease of the social media age. We open our phones, see people younger, richer, or happier, and suddenly we feel smaller. But remember, social media only shows the carefully filtered surface of other people's lives. No one posts their sleepless nights, their moments of despair, or their wounds. I remember a man named Richard once told me, I don't understand. I work hard. I live decently. Yet I'm still not like them. I asked, not like them. In what way? He went silent, because he realized he didn't even know who they were or why he was comparing himself to them. We forget that everyone runs a different race. Some are at the start, others in the middle, and maybe we're at the stage where we need to slow down and breathe. I once read a fascinating study from Stanford University that said the human brain reacts more strongly to relative loss than to real loss, meaning when we see others doing better, we feel like we're losing even when we're perfectly fine. Comparison is the fastest way to lose gratitude, and gratitude is the door to peace. If you truly want to change your life, don't look at how fast others are moving. Look at whether you are moving forward compared to yesterday. 4. Not listening to yourself. There's something strange I've noticed after years of working with adults. The older we get, the less we listen to ourselves and the more we listen to others. We listen to family, to society, to what people say, so much that we forget what our own voice sounds like. I once had a friend named Linda. She lived by every standard, had a family, a career, a house, a car. But at 55, she told me in tears, I don't know who I am anymore. She said every decision she ever made was based on what others thought was right. And when life finally became quiet, she realized she'd never lived as herself. That made me reflect deeply. Because truly, we can't change our life if we don't know what we really want. I often tell my students to do something simple. Each morning, sit quietly for 5 minutes. No phone, no music. And just ask, what do I truly need today to feel at peace? Some call it meditation. Others call it nonsense. But I call it coming home to yourself. When you learn to listen to your heart, you'll know when to move, when to pause, and when to forgive yourself. 5. Thinking too much, doing too little. This might be the most common and the most dangerous habit of all. Many of us know exactly what we need to do, but we never start. We read dozens of books, watch hundreds of videos, but everything stays in our minds. Why? Because we're waiting for the perfect time, waiting to be more ready. And in the end, we never act. I once asked a group of students, "What's something you regret delaying the most?" A 59-year-old man said, "I once wanted to apologize to my son, but I thought I'd wait for a better moment. Now, he's no longer here." Years of silence had eaten away at him. And he told me, if someone hears my story, I just want them to know, do it now. Don't wait. You see, change doesn't come from thinking differently, it comes from doing differently. Without action, every idea is just an illusion. If you want to write a book, write the first line. If you want to get healthier, take a 10-minute walk today. If you want to apologize to someone, pick up the phone right now. Sometimes a single small action can change the course of an entire life. I know what I've just said isn't new. You've probably heard it somewhere before. But the difference is, hearing it is easy living. It is hard. That's why I always remind people, change isn't a race. It's a journey of daily awakening. When you stop blaming, step out of your comfort zone. When you stop comparing, listen to yourself and take action, you'll notice your life begins to shift, quietly, gently, but surely and truly. And now, before we end today's conversation, I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, among these 5 habits, which one is holding me back the most? Be honest with yourself. Because once you see it, you've already walked halfway toward your transformation. You know, when I talk about changing your life, many people think it means doing something grand. But after more than 40 years of observing and working with thousands of adults, I've realized the biggest changes often begin with the smallest things. A different thought, a different choice, a small, consistent habit. Change isn't about how to make more money or how to become someone else. Change is about learning to become a better version of yourself little by little, day by day. I'll never forget what an old friend from California once told me. Youth is when we want the world to change. Maturity is when we realize that we must change first. Such a simple statement, yet it holds a lifetime of wisdom. Because the world doesn't revolve around our wishes. It reflects our energy and choices every single day. If you wake up feeling discouraged, life will feel heavy. But if you wake up and say, "Today I'll do just a little better," the world will smile back at you softly, genuinely. 1. The power of taking responsibility. Do you remember John? The man who once blamed the entire world. Months after our conversation, he came back to see me. He said, "I've stopped blaming others. Every morning I look in the mirror and say, everything starts with me." I asked, "How has life changed for you?" He smiled and said, "It's not that everything outside has changed, but inside me, I feel much lighter. And that lightness over time opened doors he never saw before." That's the miracle of taking responsibility. When we stop pointing fingers outward, we can finally use those same hands to rebuild our lives. True freedom doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering ourselves. Once you take responsibility for your happiness, your finances, and your emotions, no one can take them away again. 2. Stepping out of the comfort zone. I often tell people in their 50s or 60s, you're not too old to start, you're just too used to staying the same. The difference lies in habit, not age. A 25-year-old can live as if they've already given up, while a 65-year-old can learn to play an instrument, write, or start a new business as long as they still believe in themselves. I once interviewed a 72-year-old woman named Margaret. She had been a teacher her whole life. After retiring, she started a blog about her personal journey. At first, she wrote just for fun. But 3 years later, her blog had hundreds of thousands of followers. She told me through tears, "I never thought old age could open new doors. Turns out, the world was waiting for me. I just needed to open my heart." That's what I want to tell you. Don't let fear hold you back. Remember, every great thing begins with one small step and a bit of courage. 3. Stop comparing. Start appreciating. These days, we're constantly bombarded with perfect images, beautiful homes, luxurious vacations, and we think I'm so far behind. But the truth is, comparison is the thief of joy. A successful businessman friend once told me, when I made my first $1 million, I was happy. When I made 5 million, I started comparing myself to those with 10 million, and I became miserable. I smiled and said, "That's because you've forgotten the most valuable thing others don't have: peace of mind." You see, gratitude is the secret of truly happy people. They're not happier because they have more. They're happier because they appreciate more. When you learn to say thank you every day for your breath, for your loved ones, still by your side, for your morning cup of coffee, or the sunlight streaming through your window, you'll realize life was never lacking. Sometimes we just forgot to look. 4. Learning to listen to yourself. One of the most important life skills, and the one most people lose after 40, is the ability to hear your own inner voice. I've met many people who live by every standard of success: status, wealth, reputation. Yet they tell me they feel disconnected from themselves. Why? Because they've lived by others' expectations for too long. If you want peace, learn to be still. Not to think, but to listen. Listen to what your heart is saying, what your body needs, and what your soul is truly longing for. I often tell my students, sometimes what you need isn't more planning, but more silence. When you're quiet long enough, you begin to see clearly what you truly want. And once you know that, every decision becomes easier. 5. Take action, even small ones. No path to freedom exists without action. Knowledge, plans, advice. None of them matter if you never take the first step. I know starting is hard, especially when you're used to stability. But as I once told an older student, not acting because you fear mistakes is also an action to stay still. If you want to change your finances, start by tracking every expense. If you want to change your health, begin with a 15-minute morning walk. If you want to change your mindset, read for 10 minutes a day. Small steps repeated daily are what transform a life. You don't need to run, just walk and don't stop. I know at 50, 60, or even 70, it's easy to think it's too late. But remember this, time will pass anyway, whether you change or not. So why not let it pass in a way that makes you a little prouder, a little happier, and a little more at peace each day? I want you to imagine this. One morning, you wake up, look in the mirror, and see a new version of yourself, not richer, not younger, but someone who finally knows why they're living. You no longer blame. You no longer fear change. You no longer compare or stay silent within. You act every day, even just a little. And one day when you look back, you'll realize, I've come a long way. The journey of changing your life isn't about climbing a mountain in one day. It's about laying small, steady, meaningful stones one at a time. If you're listening to me today, I want you to know no one was born to stay poor, to stay broken, or to live in endless repetition. We all have the right to rewrite our story. We just need the courage to pick up the pen. And if there's only one thing you do after this video, let it be this. Choose one habit you want to change and start today. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. I'll leave you with a question, one that could change the way you see your life. 10 years from now, what do you want to thank yourself for starting today? Let that question live with you. Because sometimes one right question matters more than 1,000 answers. And if what I shared today touched you even a little, leave a comment below. Tell me where you are on your journey of change. Because when you share, you don't just help yourself, you might help someone out there who needs to hear this too. Don't forget to subscribe, because I'll be back to walk with you on this path slowly, honestly, and meaningfully. Changing your life isn't about running away from the past. It's about learning to walk more steadily toward the future. I believe you can do it. Because it's never too late to start living a life worth living.